It was a promising future for law enforcement. We're working at making something. We actually have recently come up with a way to do it with civilians as well and make it legal. Our mission is basically to produce something that fits onto current issue pistols and fires a non-lethal round. The round was starting out as a taser round, and that's evolved into a pepper gel round. Under the advice of the people I've spoken to, that would be the most effective thing to subdue a suspect. And give them due process. We're trying for something that's embraced by both officer and civilian, just to lower any sort of officer death or civilian death. Started out kind of just with the drawing. The original idea was on an M4 when I was in the military, and it's kind of evolved from there. Just kind of slowly but surely. We actually have now a civilian round, because 12 gauge shotgun's not technically legal, but 410 shells would, and we could do the same idea. It would have a tactical flashlight underneath, and it could be sold to the public as a secondary option for non-lethal weaponry, or as more firepower for that matter. What it actually fires is a one-of-a-kind rubber shell. It's basically just loaded up into the shotgun, fires about 50 yards, and it releases pepper gel on impact, which atomizes and takes out the suspect. It's used in the escalation of force. Currently, there's nothing in between assaultive bodily harm and assaultive serious like death. There's nothing that can de-escalate a situation at that point. You either cross-draw your taser or you pull your lethal weapon. Once the lethal weapon's out, which on a felony stop or in certain situations you're going to draw your lethal weapon, but once that's out, you're kind of at that point of no return. This would make it have a point of return. It's pretty easy to use. I was talking to the sheriff last week, and we were looking at the sympathetic nervous system reaction, being that it would be a different kind of trigger. It would have safeties in place. For when you squeezed it, it would lift the hammer, lock back, and fire the shell. You'd pull up right here, squeeze as such, and it would fire the round. It would also have a flashlight, so you wouldn't be losing any capability, you'd only be gaining. I put together an amazing team of people. They've just carried me pretty much the entire way with what we've done so far. Chime, she does all my social media, a lot of the administrative work, and she's in her own right already a very, very successful person. She's got 360K YouTube subscribers. She does online activism and modeling, and pretty cool, real cool to work with. My brother, he's 82nd Airborne, 373rd Cavalry Con. He's also a weapons expert. He can tell you the legality, and he actually came up with the mechanical design to keep it foolproof. And anytime I have weapons questions, he can name any weapon you can think of that pretty much ever existed. Aaron, another genius. He's a 5 times Pinnacle Award, which is top 10 in the country. Verizon Winner's Circle, 7 times, just again top 10 in the country at sales. And he's a board of trustee at his Baptist church. Just a guy that you can go to with, and always has incredible advice, and has been a really good friend to me. He just really knows his stuff and has been supportive the entire way. And then Josh, he's a great manager. He's someone that helps build the team, keep everybody together, and keep everybody grounded. And Nicholas, he's been able to, I give him a design, just an idea, he pushes it out. He can make 3D designs, mechanical designs, engineering, and he's been great. I can ask him for something, and it's done before I even expected it. So, really cool guy. And what questions do we have? Sure.
Just curious about distance. Obviously, the distance is going to be a lot shorter than lethal rounds.
So the distance would be larger with a lethal round, but engagement distance is usually within 10 to about 20 feet. So about 50 feet is the max distance before it starts to lose accuracy. There is a little bit on the civilian round, there's a little bit of barrel With the 410 round, it's a little bit shorter round, so the barrel increases the compression and lets the round fly and actually hit the target. Ma'am?
What is the involuntary inflammatory response?
So involuntary inflammatory response is when you have capsicum or OC gel or anything like that. It's an inflammatory response that you can't help. So no matter what effect you're under or what you're feeling, you're not going to be able to stop it. It's going to hit you, and you're going to choke up, and you're going to tear, and you're going to be crying, and you're going to be in a lot of pain. And you can't help it. It's completely involuntary. Just like with a taser that puts you, it does an involuntary muscle response, that's how the same thing. So it doesn't matter how big you are, you can't stop that. Ma'am?
What happens if you're hit in the face with this? Is there any permanent visual damage?
You get hit in the eyes, you get hit in the throat. It's less than lethal, not completely non-lethal. Non-lethal and less than lethal are interchangeable legally. And that's, at that point though, if you're assaulting somebody to the point to where they're firing something like this, they already have their lethal weapon pointed at you. Much rather get hit by that by a hollow point or a full metal jacket. But yes, you could.
I guess I'm just thinking in terms of liability, would there be permanent vision loss from the capsaicin or the capsicum as opposed to the projectile? In other words, would the involuntary response that would occur on the epithelial cells, would it be a permanent response in the eye area?
No, ma'am. It actually wears off after about 45 minutes. So you're in a lot of pain for about 45 minutes, but after that it wears off, and there's actually things to neutralize it, which are pretty interesting. But 45 minutes, you're back to baseline, probably not in a very good place, but shouldn't have been doing what you're doing. So, sir?
Do you have any sales so far, or are you still in the prototype stage?
Still in the prototype stage. So I've got multiple people that I've talked to that want to buy them. We just came up very, very recently after talking to the sheriff with the civilian idea. Just as far as we're planning on crowdfunding it. That's why I got Chime involved. We were going to go on Indiegogo. I have a really good video that I can get to play that shows, about the product and shows a demo of it in an animation and tells a little bit about it. Still prototype though. Just basically the rounds, there is such thing as the kind of rounds we do. They're very similar. They make these rounds called ferret rounds. They usually shoot them at the ceiling, but because they're hard, they're like a hard plastic. But there is also rubber rounds. It's a combination of the two that hasn't been done yet.
What is the dispersion range? Like, if we're this close and I shoot you, how many people will be affected in that area?
That's a good question. So I actually was speaking to a Marine that worked at the Pentagon, and I was originally going to use pepper spray because I was looking for the atomization. That was one thing he said, and we ended up moving to pepper gel. You're talking 2 or 3 feet in a bubble, and it sticks and it lands quickly. It's a heavy molecule, so it sticks to what its target is.
Are you working on some partnership relationships, and is this going to be strictly in the law enforcement, or is this a civilian product?
It's going to be both. So, yeah, we're working for both.
Established partnerships you're already investigating?
I've been working with Mordo Sullivan of Warren Averett as far as he's my business advisor. But as far as business partnerships, no ma'am, I haven't particularly gone public. This is the most public thing I've done with it so far.
Not business, but I'm talking about like law enforcement, military. Are you building those relationships?
Oh yes ma'am, I just met with the sheriff last week. I've met with the sheriff in Starkville where I was at. I've met with a bunch of the leader of the police association, a bunch of different, I network like crazy. Sir?
Is there a certification process that you need to go through before law enforcement is authorized?
Yes, sir. That was the biggest holdover on Leo is that their certification, they test it about 1,000 times, hit a guy with adrenaline, test it again, and make sure that the weapon is feasible. As far as that goes, that's why we moved towards making a civilian round as well. But it's not undoable, so, yeah.
I kind of have two questions. The first is, how much are you looking to get out of your crowdfunding campaign, and how long ago did you start this project?
I started the project about 1.5 years ago, and I'm looking at the baseline funding. If I wasn't paying myself, which is how it's been up to this point, but would be $140,000, because you're looking at. I was looking at making a mil-spec weapon. Getting all that cast is $140,000. After that, and that's enough to make some, sell some, and keep profits going enough after profits and payouts and building costs. That's.
Are you manufacturing here in the States?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
What is your anticipated time frame for production?
I've been talking with a manufacturing major over at the college here, and I mean we could have it out pretty quickly within the next 6 to 8 months. Of course, the civilian one would be easier to make because it doesn't require that testing process of, is this something that we have to test 10,000 times? You would of course want testing and to back it up, but the use for it could not only be just, someone breaks into my house. It could also be loaded up with buckshot if I'm going hunting, loaded up, shoot bears you could use it for different uses as well. It's pretty much putting a little tiny shotgun, kind of like a Taurus Judge. So it just is it's an auxiliary weapon, which is just adding an extra feature to what you already have. So pretty quickly. Sir?
What's to keep an existing gun manufacturer that already has contracts with all those, police departments to go, hey, that looks like a pretty cool idea, I'll just put a new line into my manufacturing facility and start pumping them out?
That's a good question too. So I've been working with, with like a patent lawyer and locking down what I can. Not much. It's taboo right now with police officers to mix lethal and non-lethal. Right now, cross draw is the go-to. It's the status quo. So it would be a little bit of luck. I mean, as far as pushing it out, when I go to Indiegogo it, I'm hoping.
What's to keep someone that already is building a gun and say, like, I'm a big gun manufacturer, I think that's a good idea. Why don't I just start making it myself and sell it?
Let's check out.
One more time, sorry.
So what keeps you protected from an existing gun manufacturer that's already has contracts with law enforcement across the country to say, like, hey, this looks like a new idea, I'm just going to start manufacturing and distributing it, on my own?
Well, legal protections is going to be the biggest thing, as far as just making sure I have the patent locked down and the trademark on the device, and that taboo area has kept people from thinking of anything like this. I've been keeping it hush hush, other than speaking to law enforcement. Of course, if I'm meeting, I've talked to 6 Hour and a couple other people and gotten a lot of good feedback on it, and a few offers, and it's just. I've gotten pretty lucky. I've been a little blessed with that so far. So I'm doing my best with what I can, because you can only hope that somebody doesn't want to take it at that point, because they'd run me over if they could. Sir?
There's usually a reason or a why that got you started on this journey. What was your reason or why?
While I was in OCS, we were talking about what would you do if we were having a convoy and the convoy went down. That's Officer Candidate School for the acronym. If your convoy went down, what would be the right level of force to use if the locals were trying to take your food? They're trying to get us to use our brain. It's not stop, shove, show, shoot. It's, stop, shove, zip tie a few people. And that was the logical answer, but I'm sitting there on no sleep and just kind of doodling. And I thought of basically adding a cattle prod to an M4. I was looking at the bayonet attachment, and I was like, man, that would be overpowering. You could take the littlest soldier, pop, knock down the biggest guy. And that was originally how it started. And then I came back home, and all the shootings were publicized. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better solution for this. And I looked up this thing called the Taser X-Rep. Brilliant shotgun shell. It shot about 150 yards, fins, fell into an antenna, created muscular incapacitation across the circuit. And it turns out the guy that invented it in the UK distributed it illegally without the permission of the Home Office. He was found committed suicide with an unknown cause of death kind of thing, and they discontinued that round. So that was the original idea, and just the development of the shell after speaking to people and doing my own research on it.
You mentioned some unique things about the round you guys have been producing and selling. The rounds for these as well,
Yes, sir. We will be producing a round for it. It would be, capable of any kind of round. But yeah, we would be making the round as well.
It sounds like the idea is you're creating a non-lethal solution, but how easily could somebody that has maybe the evil intent create a round to put in this thing that does make basically a handgun, a shotgun, and be used for lethal rounds? Or are you doing something preventative to stop that?
Well, so with that, I've put some thought into that. If somebody were to make their own rounds, not really, and it wouldn't be very hard to modify, like with the 410 civilian version, you could put in a 410 round, but with ours, they're a little shorter, and you don't get any barrel compression if you don't have them a little shorter, and there's not very many rounds that are that short. So that's one thing, but really it would be something that, if I was hunting and I wanted, or if I even am one of those people that want a little extra firepower in my pistol, say I have people breaking into my house and they have shotguns and I need a little more kick, at that point, that's your choice. Yeah.
So I asked you my question, are you trying to make the taser obsolete, and then what are you doing to cut costs or time? Because I know when police officer actually draws their own firearm, they have to pay for it anyway, so how do you do that?
So I'm not trying to make the taser obsolete. I'm not trying to compete with taser by any means. I'm trying to follow in the footsteps of how they were successful with Marrero. They took a huge dude and put a gun in front of him about 5 feet and said, go and get it, and popped him, and he went down. Actually, Bruce Harris, the non-lethal weapons expert here, is friends with him, and we're trying to get him. So not trying to compete, just trying to add a secondary option, because tasers work well at the time where I don't have my lethal weapon drawn, or if say I chase someone down the alley, I can't draw my taser because I don't have cover. So this would be it would fill in the gap. And as far as cutting cost with that, the rounds aren't very expensive. We were looking at making the attachment out of titanium because it's light, and the rounds wouldn't be very expensive to refill. Of course, hopefully it's a pretty decent volume. Sir?
Kind of two-part question for me. Are you seeing more of it as a social? Like I see you have the girl with Instagram. Are you going more to consumer rather than like a large government contractor to buy 200 of these?
So I have actually very recently, I sat down with Dr. McGilvray and we were talking about it, come up with the idea to actually make it civilian legal. It's originally being a short-barreled shotgun. It's not going to get approved. I was talking to a lawyer at Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and it would not get approved if it's short-barreled shotgun, but 410 rounds, pretty much like a 45, so it would get approved that way. So now we're actually fairly recently going to be marketing consumers, but I'm not going to say anything about that until it's go time. So.
Secondly, so let's say the police force buys 100 of them. Do you have to sell them new holsters because the holsters don't fit? Are you going to manufacture those? Is there going to be a specialty holster, or am I wrong?
Currently, we actually have it designed where it will fit in with a flashlight holster, but with the new...
Just separate attachment?
Yes, sir.
Put it on, so I draw my weapon, I put it on?
No, sir, it will stay on. It has a flashlight up underneath. Let's see if I got it here. Well, killed on there. It's got a flashlight up underneath it, and it does both. So if they draw, it's already on their weapon when they draw. They're here, they squeeze, they're ready to go. So.
How are you doing the prototype?
Sir?
How are you doing the prototype?
We're going to be machining it. I'm talking with my manufacturing major friend, and he's got these guys that make silencers and they make weapons. They're close by. He just actually is sending me a bill of materials the next couple days. So we're going to be just doing machining. And at, well, we have been 3D printing as far as just like our 3D prints are to scale. I have multiple 3D prints, and Nicholas, the guy on my team, he's an incredible mechanically minded person, and he's been making 3D prints for everything, and so he's been taking care of that. Question, though? Sir? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You said it had a dual trigger type mechanism. Can you go over that again? How that works?
Yes, sir. So it cocks forward and down, and when you squeeze the dual trigger mechanism, it releases a safety that and pushes the hammer up at the same time, a spring pushes that hammer back, and when that hammer comes back, it hits a lever that hits the firing pin and hits the primer on the shell. So it's a squeeze trigger button.
So, in the legal, non-legal world, in sense of urgency, there's no confusion or won't hinder a policeman or whoever making that decision. I mean, if it needs to transfer, it's not any kind of confusion.
Correct. Yeah, it's where your fingers already are. So yeah, when you're here, and in your isosceles or however you stand with a pistol, depending on your style, your hand's already there. So, sir.
You're looking to create a social movement that then makes the government react. Like you say, you're crowdfunding, you're trying to say, okay, we got 1 million people to want this, now government has to change. Is that your goal?
I am not fighting the beast on that one. I'm trying to work alongside and show the benefit of it. The social movement thing has kind of already started. I'm apolitical completely. I just want a solution that can save some lives.
Okay, what if they miss? How many rounds? Is it just hold the 1 round or 2 rounds?
They miss, you pull the trigger at that point.
So you have
Yes,
1
ma'am.
round?
Yes, ma'am. The civilian version has 2 rounds, but it fires both at the same time. And the police officer round has 1. Looked at some different options for that. There's stacked shells. I thought of a revolving you need to pull the trigger. Sir? Oh, I'm sorry.
Estimated price point, what they sell for? Or?
Yes, sir. Looking at around $500 to $600, and looking at making them for about $100 once the initial machining and the initial prototype is made.
And then the price of the rounds?
Price of the rounds, looking at probably like $5 to $10 a box. So, yes, sir. Sir?
You had mentioned that there's a law in Texas that requires them to have a legal document if they don't have backup.
Correct.
Is that city, state, federal?
As far as I know, that's federal. And I think it's more of a status quo kind of thing. Again, it's for the safeties of the officers. It's more of a like, this is what we do, instead of a actual specific law on it. It's just kind of, it's like covering the corners in the room. I'm not sure if there's a statute on it, but I know it's SOP. So.
So you can ask more questions after, but in one really quick fashion, what can the Pensacola community do for you?
I'm looking for investment into the advertising for it so that we can get out there, because I have somebody that's already got a good reach, and I'll be making the money back on the crowdfunding if I'm successful with that. So looking for an investment into the crowdfunding. Thank you.